First, this is more of a hot cake actually than a pancake. First, I want to make my hot cake mixture. So self-raising flour, I'm going to put whatever that was of that in there. I don't measure anything when I make a hot cake. You really, if you try and do measurements, you'll end up thinking that your consistency is right and it's wrong. So you just add things until you get the right consistency. So whatever amount that was, I'm just going to add the right amount of milk, eggs, butter to get the consistency that I want, and I'll talk to you about that. I'm going to melt my butter. I want about that much butter, whatever that was. Maybe 25 grams of butter. You don't want too much butter because it'll end up kind of biscuity rather than cakey. An egg I need some extra raising agent, so bicarb, about a teaspoon of bicarb. I need a good pinch of salt. Sugar, about 1/4 cup. My milk and my egg and my wet ingredients. So egg first. Milk. I'm going to add my butter now that it's melted. I don't mind leaving that butter in there because I'm going to use that later to cook. I'm going to stir with a knife because I don't want to overwork this batter. I want it to be nice and light and fluffy. I want to mix this gently. I need a little bit more milk. And don't mix it until you don't have any lumps. You actually want lumps because it shows you that you haven't over-mixed your batter. Especially with a hot cake batter, you're after more of a cake mixture than, or closer or thicker mixture than you would use for a pancake and especially for a crepe. That is very, very, very close to what I'm after. So if you can see that consistency, you can see how it's lumpy. All right, so that is the consistency that I'm after. Doesn't look like it's meant to be like that, but trust me, if you leave it at that, you're gonna end up with a much better pancake. The pan that I have my butter in is the pan that I'm gonna cook in. I've got my oven on. My oven was set at 180 degrees. So I'm gonna start cooking it in here and then put it into the oven to finish off like you would a cake. My topping to go with this hot cake, I'm gonna do a banana and Kahlua mixture and caramel to go on top of the pancake or the hot cake. All right, so spoon my hot cake mixture in. You want enough to cover the bottom of your pan. Remember, this is gonna raise quite a bit because we've got all that raising agent. That goes straight into our oven. So that will cook for 95% of its time as it is. And then I'm gonna flip it and I'll show you a good trick for flipping it over and finishing off on the other side. While all that takes place, I need to get everything ready for my caramel Kahlua. Another pan, my Kahlua, some brown sugar, a little bit of butter, a little bit of cream, and my bananas. So I'm gonna make my caramel first and then put my bananas into the caramel. So pan on again. The good thing about this is you don't need to make a caramel from scratch. Because you've got brown sugar, you've basically got caramelized sugar anyway. So it's not like using raw sugar and having to go through that process of pushing it to a caramel. You've pretty much done that. So we've got our brown sugar, can go in. I'm gonna let that melt a little bit, but I'm gonna use some Kahlua to help that process. Pinch of salt. Mix your sugar and your Kahlua together. A couple of knobs of butter. Stir our butter in. And then once I've got all that butter melted in, I'm just gonna add a little bit of cream. And that's gonna make my caramel pourable. A little bit of cream. Turn my heat off. Bananas. So while that's cooling down, I wanna take a banana, chop it into rounds, and then pop that in there while it's cooling. I don't want to cook my banana too much because it's just going to turn to mush. So I'll leave that last banana in case I want some fresh banana to go with this. And there's our Kahlua caramel and bananas ready to pour on top of our hot cake once it comes out. And we've got about 15 minutes left to wait on our hotcake. So we'll come back and check that when we're about to flip it. So my banana, caramel and Kahlua is done. I just need my pancake or my hotcake to finish off. So I'm going to show you how to flip a hotcake. You need another fry pan, which is basically the same size as the fry pan that's in there. It can be, I could use that one and it'd be absolutely fine, but it just seems to work a lot easier if you've got one that's a very similar size. Grab your pan, one that's the same size or similar, pop it on top and just flip it over. So you might need to give it a little tap, but it should. And just remember that one's hot, so keep a tea towel on it. That goes back in to brown the other side. We've got about 5 minutes left and we're ready to plate up our pancake. That can come out. So you can see how much that's risen because of the way we treated it before we put it in there. So we left it nice and lumpy, we didn't overwork the batter, and you get a nice fluffy, well-risen hotcake. We'll take that out, pop it into your bowl, and smother with as much, I was going to say as much or as little, but really just as much of this banana Kahlua caramel as you want. I'm going to put all of it on here. That is not mucking around. That's 3 bananas and a whole bunch of caramel on top of a hotcake. I would not recommend eating that on your own. Find a friend or find 3 friends, a little bit of cream or a dollop of ice cream on top of that, and that is my adult version of pancakes.